Spider-Man No Way Home is the most recent Spider-Man
One of the
film.
most anticipated movies. I was going to say of the year, but probably of the past few years.
Came out Thursday. Some people in this chat have already seen it multiple times.
Damn.
Not by my choice.
What do you mean? You always have a choice. I watched this movie yesterday. It's safe to say this is the biggest deal since Endgame. It's not quite at the Endgame level, though some people do say it's Endgame level.
That's exactly where I'm at. I think this is the best MCU movie since Endgame.
Bradley.
But it's
Bradley.
not Endgame.
You've seen 2 out of the 3 movies. So that is 3 movies you're comparing it to. So that's not really high praise.
No, you know what? Here's a better way to say it. It's in my top 5 MCU movies, maybe even top 3.
We're gonna get to that. We have our bonus question of the day, and spoiler alert, it might relate to that. Okay.
It's fucking good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, we're not gonna bother being spoiler free because everything is a spoiler.
This is a spoiler cast right now for Spider-Man.
Yeah,
we all like it. Let me just say that we all like this film. Go watch it. Come back to this video. Okay, let's start. Who wants to start this? Joe, do you want to start?
I am very upset about this movie.
Oh my god.
Poggers. I want this controversy.
Because I really like the one of the big things I like about Spider-Man is, and like if we discussed this a bit in our chat with Discord, is the friendly neighborhood part of the Spider-Man. And part of that is the personal attachment to the villain that he is fighting in some way. And like the Vulture, I think, was a great villain because that was his prom date and like it involved in his life. And so
is his name Quentin Flynn?
Quentin Beck.
Quentin Beck was also in line with that because as many qualms as I might have with that second film, Quentin Beck kind of preyed on Peter's attachment to Spider-Man in an interesting way.
And preyed on his insecurity about being a hero and like his like starry-eyed look up to Iron Man and everything. So there's a personal element that Peter has to get over for this. In this movie, by bringing in only villains from other dimensions, I just like. I've seen this movie twice. I literally saw it within 15 hours of each other. And each time I'm just like, there's nothing, the driving point that Peter is having to deal with, he's not dealing with.
Joe, I am so glad you exist in my universe because I feel like I live in a world where everyone watched this movie and they got hype at fucking Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield that they stopped paying attention to what's actually happening in the script. And while I got hyped over Tobey and Andrew,
I was very happy.
I never let go of what was happening in the script, and I'm just glad that like you're kind of seeing some of the things that I saw. Because I've seen nothing but undisputed love. I'm glad Cosmonaut Marcus had a pretty even take. But, like, say the Reddit, when you go to Reddit and you go to check, like, a movie discussion thread, you'll see a lot of, like, mostly mixed opinions when you hit the mid. Everyone loves this film. And I like this film, but I got to this way early in the podcast. It's something that is so universally loved right now that I feel like we're not talking about some, what I would consider pretty big flaws with the film. And I feel like you're getting into them right now.
Yeah, it's just,
and I hate to be the party pooper.
Yeah, and because like I think about it, and I think there's like in my brain there's the segment that leads up to Peter to Doctor Strange and he casts the spell, right? And then after that is the segment where everything invades and they kind of resolve their crises, and then you resolve finally Peter's inciting incident of the film. Yeah. Right? But it feels like this middle part is like very self-insert. It feels like almost artificial to put in there. Like there's a like it's hard for me to like I don't know.
It's the fan service.
It's so fan servicey, and I am a part of that fan service audience, but I like to think, and this is a thought experiment. Let's look at Endgame without having the prior knowledge, and let's look at a No Way Home without the prior knowledge.
I'm not going to compare this to Endgame.
Which one do you suppose is the better film? Because I think without prior knowledge,
Endgame.
I still think Endgame turns out as the tighter script.
Yeah. For me, I like No Way Home, but it kind of doesn't. It's like
we all like.
It's on the same level as Civil War.
Okay, I'm back. So, where was I? What was I talking about? Genuinely, I don't.
You were talking about how the movie is messy.
So I asked if is it a hot take that this movie is messy, and I got a lot of pushback immediately. And I checked the disc, I saw people saying it's their favorite MCU film. I went on Reddit, everyone loves this film, and I was like, I also really like this film, but like the characterization and the plotting of this film is kind of shit. Like, this whole... Okay, let me get to the premise of this movie, which set me off, which kind of painted my view of the rest of the movie. Doctor Strange goes into this spell, and he's aware that he can change the parameters of the spell. However, he does not check with Peter Parker if he should make any exceptions to the spell. Is that not the dumbest premise that the... Sorcerer Supreme, not currently, but in the past, would make this rookie mistake of not setting the premises of the spell ahead of time?
You know, I think my opinion of the movie is higher than Joe and Willer's, for example, but even back when the very first trailer for this dropped and we saw that premise of Doctor Strange doing the spell for Peter, I remember going like, would Doctor Strange do that? Like, would he do such a dangerous spell for?
And here's the thing: I've read that in certain plot lines, Doctor Strange is a little more like he's a bit of a Iron Man-esque character, where he's like his vices and his hubris get ahead of him, and he does these things sometimes. But let's think about the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Doctor Strange, and I think that person would not be this reckless.
Mm-hmm. Especially like because the next biggest time we saw Doctor Strange was in like Infinity War and Endgame, and he was very much like, you have to do it this way. If you don't do it this way, we're not gonna win.
He was the fucking guy in Endgame.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and I'm glad y'all pointed out the stuff y'all pointed out, because I was riding high after the movie, and I still am. And I still think my opinion of it is, like, a higher rating than you guys gave it. But I think you point out a very good stuff where, like, looking back, a lot of the middle parts of that movie, how necessary were some of the things that were happening, or was a lot of this just kind of for fan service? And a lot of it was. And you know what? The fan service is part of what makes this movie so spectacular, and
Absolutely.
You can't shy away from that. Like, I think it is so fucking cool that this movie exists in the same way that I think it's so cool.
I think we can save the positives, because I have a lot of positives to say for later. But let's keep on the negative train for now.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think you're right in that regard, and
here's another thing I want y'all to consider, because I feel like people got really. People got really high off of seeing Toby and Andrew. Was there an action sequence that you thought was to the MCU standard in this film?
There was one.
Okay, you're going to say the Doctor Strange sequence right now.
No,
okay, go on.
The one, I'll give you that. I felt like a lot of the fights, even including, like, the grand finale fight, just, like, didn't have as many like of those hype moments that I've come to expect. However, the one fight where I was like, "Damn, this is some good fucking action." This is
the
like
other
good
one.
Action,
I got you.
Is when Peter was fighting Osborn in the hotel,
and he's pile driving him through 3 floors. That was hype.
Some of those moves were fucking badass. Like when Peter uses webs to pull both of them into the air, flips around, webs the ground, pulls, and then
I've done that in the Spider-Man video game. It's great.
Yeah.
Here's a negative I want you to consider about that fight the second time you watch it.
Okay.
Look at all the camera cuts that happens throughout that fight. It is constantly cutting from Peter to Osborn, and it's because, let's be honest, the actor for Osborn can't be that physical these days, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't actually know his name, but he's a fantastic actor.
Willem
Willem,
Dafoe?
oh my God, I don't. Willem Dafoe's in The Lighthouse, and I love him. What am I doing with my life? So they cut away from Willem Dafoe all the time in this film, and that hallway scene, as brutal as it was, I was a little taken aback by how uneven the cuts were. In average, the cuts throughout the movie are a little weird
Because
of COVID filming. Yes.
We are still in a COVID filming lifestyle. Every movie has significantly more cuts.
Here's something you need to consider. Is it not weird that the plot facilitated the villains being in different zones of each other, and they would just talk at each other through a prison cell?
That was funny.
Those were so clearly filmed in different times where it's like, it's just weird.
Yeah.
I thought that was well executed because we have a extremely other similar moment in the MCU in Civil War where they are all in prison cells talking to Iron Man through them in the same way.
I don't remember that, to be honest.
When they're getting arrested and they're on the prison out in the middle of the sea after Iron Man captures them for resisting arrest and not signing the treaty.
I feel like the tone of that conversation, as I recall it, was a little more even. I'll get to the villains in a second. Another thing about the action. So I talked about the Doctor Strange scene, right? That was pretty neat. It was worse than the scene in 2 where Mysterio goes all out with the illusions. And I don't think that's unfair to say. When a Mysterio went all out with the illusions, the CGI team popped off. It was such a visually interesting scene. Meanwhile, we've seen this kind of stuff in the Doctor Strange film and even in Infinity War. So that's one thing.
Did he go to the mirror dimension in Infinity War? I don't remember that.
He did the 100 arms bullshit illusion shit in Infinity War.
Yeah.
He did, yes.
So other things.
Call Doctor Strange Mysterio like 3 times?
No, I'm saying that Mysterio in the second film did the similar thing, but better.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah, I'm with you now. You just switched to Doctor Strange really quick. I was like, whoa!
Yeah, I'm saying like what a lot of people will consider the most visually interesting scene of the movie was done better in the other ones. And I think the writing of this one is better than the second, but I think the action and visuals are better in that second one as well.
That's the thing. I like this a lot better than Far From Home.
Far From Home has this. Joe really likes Far From Home, but that is really just you.
Dude, I fell asleep.
Oh man, I was pumped the entire time.
Another thing, wasn't it annoying how bad the CGI in this movie, and this is why I asked Tyler about his relationship with his partner as far as CGI goes. I thought the CGI in this movie was pretty poor.
I can't.
Sandman, it was so annoying that the actor did not want to be in the movie where he's like, just fucking let me voice like most of my scenes. I'll show up for the end. And Dr. Connor was the same with the lizard. And wasn't it annoying when they drop a line where it's like the lizard wanted to hang out in the truck so we don't have to actually CGI him in a place that has lighting, because we only want to CGI stuff in dark places where it's easier. Like, let's be honest, the CGI was not up to MCU standards.
I really wish that the Sandman and the Lizard were not in this movie. I think the movie would have actually been better if they were.
You're right. They should have had Big Wheel instead.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Go for it.
We were just talking about action, and especially with us talking about the Lizard and the Sandman. I gotta talk about the final fight, man, against like all the villains at once, because I kind of hated that fight. Yeah, because like
it's not cool.
It's just not that cool.
The takedowns were so lame. Like 2 of the villains, all they had to do was like get within a certain radius of them and push a button on this device, and they were done. And I'm like, that was kind of easy.
Even the fanciest thing was Peter 2 throwing a thing to Peter 3, like while he was drowning. Like that's not particularly cool.
Which is like trivial for a Spider-Man to do.
Yeah.
And then like there was a part where I can't remember which Spider-Man was fighting the Lizard, but someone called it, like they were trading blows and stuff, and then someone called for his help. So all he did was web blast him 2 or 3 times, and then the Lizard couldn't move for several minutes. And I'm like,
even though he's really strong, yeah.
I'm like, why is he a threat?
and here's the thing. Here's another thing. Not being able to tell which Spider-Man was doing what is a bit of an issue. Visually speaking, I also couldn't tell, and they had to have like very obvious voice lines sometimes to be able to facilitate that. Okay.
And now, I'll forgive that fight a little bit because while it's the biggest fight in the movie, I'll concede that, like, it's the biggest fight in the movie, but it's not the narrative climax. Like, the climax is,
it's Peter and MJ. We'll get to the positives, which that is the hard part.
I was going to say the climax is Peter about to kill Osborn and
that
the other
too.
Peter stop him.
Yeah. I really like you were talking about like fights that had an impact. And it wasn't what was the first one you said that everybody liked?
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
I liked the very final moments with Peter and Osborn and him just beating the ever loving fuck out of him because it reminded me of Civil War.
Well, can we get back? I have other gripes. I'm definitely gonna circle back to this because I also love that. Okay, it's just that people are not talking about the weird things in the movie. Here's another thing that I was thinking about, and I've suddenly lost my. So some scenes are awkwardly long as well. Yeah. So the editing is like, let's think about the scene where Andrew Garfield shows up, and they keep cutting back to the jokes with like Ned's grandma.
Yeah.
And I get that we just got through like the most serious scene in the movie where Aunt May dies. It's just like that comedy was so off sometimes.
The joke is that
it went for a long time with them interrogating Andrew Garfield. I'm like, can we?
The scene has a lot of fat we can cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's removed from the action. And back to the action real quick. Sure, that's all fine and dandy. Maybe that's just the MCU standard, except it's not. Think about the scene where Peter takes out the drones in Far From Home. I thought that was a pretty impressive scene because it shows his spider sense and he's taking out those drones. He's like webbing them all together. And then think about the scene in Homecoming where he gets buried by the vulture and he has to like pick himself back up and like lift the building. And the actual fight with the vulture, like visually, and this is the same director. This director has been able to pull off more interesting action scenes than this movie. And that's kind of a bummer, considering
we know where the budget went.
The budget went to not the budget, but the casting.
Yes, that's where the budget went.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So another thing I want to bring up, we brought up the awkwardly long scenes and the editing. Here's a core conceit to the plot, aside from the Doctor Strange thing. So, Peter 2, Tobey Maguire, loses Uncle Ben to a random killer / Sandman, still pretty street level.
Yeah.
Peter 2 loses Uncle Ben to like kind of a conspiracy plot.
No,
Uncle Ben. Oh no, those are his parents that die in the plane.
Yes.
And then Uncle Ben dies in like a weirdly edited scene in Spider-Man 1. But you know what he does get? He gets the best scene in any Spider-Man movie, which is Gwen Stacy's death. And I'm gonna die on this hill. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a bad film with the best scene in all of the Spider-Man movies.
That is accurate.
That is accurate. And we're going to circle back around to that because it comes back around.
That scene. I sobbed in that movie.
Yeah, that was a great scene. Peter Parker loses Aunt May to a villain he just met from an alternate dimension. And I think this very accurately explains the problem with MCU Peter.
Yeah.
Like, it is so not street level where you lose your significant other to a Norman Osborn from another fucking dimension that you had no priors with.
Yeah.
And, like, isn't that weird?
And that's the thing, right? He never made any mistakes with Osborn. Every interaction he ever had was trying to help him, so it doesn't feel like a moral failing of Peter caused this.
I guess I missed that because I've not rewatched like the other Spider-Man movies since like they came out, and I never even saw like all of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans. I just was like, if they were on TV, I saw them in passing.
In passing.
So the recap scenes.
That being said, like right before that happened, they like Dr. Octopus talked about how Osborn killed his son. Or like how he died. He got stabbed to death with his own glider.
Yeah, that's
himself with his own glider.
Yeah, that doesn't really fit into this because like that's not Peter's problem.
That's not the point.
Say there was a Green Goblin in the MCU beforehand, which I think is Joe's point.
Isn't his problem. And Doctor Strange talks a lot about how none of their universal problems are their problems.
Which is a cool true neutral stance as a true neutral boy. So, but I do like how they it's kind of weird. I don't know.
Doesn't have any problems directly with any of them one-on-one. Yeah. His problem is with the decision and responsibility he takes himself to disobey what is logically correct.
But if you compare the other two Peter's deaths to Peter MCU's death, one's just way more magical, big scale than and I like my Spider-Man small scale. We talked about this earlier today in our Discord. I like my street level Spider-Man where Uncle Ben's death is almost insignificant in the grand scheme of things, as opposed to a interdimensional Norman Osborn just ganking Aunt May, you know?
That's the other thing too is like in the moment that Ben dies in both of those films, Peter Parker makes a very selfish decision, and that's what leads to Ben's death. Peter Parker chooses not to help. Ben dies.
Yeah.
In this one, Peter Parker chooses to help and May dies.
And that's interesting. I just think it has less of that personal value. That's what I'm getting to.
And it's also like it also doesn't reinforce the great power, great responsibility as much on like a personal level. Yeah. Because
I think it still stacks up really well. I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off. I think it still stacks up really well because all of these aunts and family members died in the first Spider-Man movie. I did not expect Aunt May to die after she's been in 3 movies, you know?
Aunt May's alive in all of the Tobey Maguire films and the Andrew Garfield films.
But we didn't have an Uncle Ben or a parents. All we had was Aunt May.
Instead, we had Iron Man, which is a whole nother problem. Okay?
We have to have a family member die, and nobody died.
Look, I'm with you. Peter going through it made this movie better. I'm just saying it wasn't.
I'm happy May died.
I'm just pointing out the drop potential on the floor by making it more personal, like the other 2 Peter Parkers.
Fair.
Or once again, Peter choosing not to take responsibility for his actions causes May to die. Like that to me is the biggest thing. Is like Peter's trying to fix the situation and still ends up with her death.
Okay.
That's my gripe.
And my final gripe, as the grouch I'm being, because we're going to get all positive for the last 5 or 10 minutes, okay? My final gripe is the treatment of some of the returning villains, okay? I thought Sandman, Electro, and potentially Dr. Connor, but I don't know as much about him, and potentially the Green Goblin is not very good. However, Peter Molina, Dr. Octopus was so fucking good. But we'll get back to that. Electro is the weirdest point to me in this movie, where they just completely rewrote the character. And Jamie Foxx, like, I think he's a fairly good actor. If with a good script, he can do good. They just decided to completely drop everything he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And don't get me wrong, that's a shit movie, but you can't just completely abandon that, you know? Like, that doesn't feel like a canon anymore.
You know what he felt like? He felt like the same character he played in Baby Driver.
That's exactly what I thought! Oh my god, yes!
I was like, this is the same Jamie Foxx from Baby Driver.
This is just gangster Jamie Foxx when this is not who Electro was.
Is Baby Driver tied into the Andrew Garfield?
Yeah, Baby Driver has the spider sense because he's deaf, or whatever the plot was.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, but Sandman was almost aggressively bad in this film.
So bad. Sandman of all the villains doesn't make sense.
I feel like the more you like Spider-Man movies, the more you're gonna hate some of the aspects of this movie, especially Sandman.
Sandman has always been bad.
No, Sandman was fairly sympathetic in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, he was. Still wasn't good.
Just because Spider-Man 3 has some bad writing doesn't mean Sandman was bad.
Here's my other problem with Sandman. Sandman lives at the end of Spider-Man 3 and actually ends on good terms with Peter Parker. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So it's like there's almost no moral quandary because you're like, all right, let's go our separate ways. We're not going to deal with each other.
I just want to get back to my family, and I'm gonna fight Spider-Man, even though I'm okay with going back to my family. Shut the fuck up! That doesn't make sense. Why does no one talk about this? I haven't seen anyone talk about this, and I'm just really upset.
Dr. Connors wanted to be a lizard. He's probably upset he's not a lizard anymore. Like,
oh man, and like the thing. So like, okay. Osborn and Octavius were going through mental issues because of their illnesses, so we fixed that. Yeah. Max is a little in the gray zone. Dr. Connors and Sandman did not need to be cured necessarily. Like they weren't evil because of their illnesses. They were evil because of circumstances of their own choices. So like, Circuit brought up actually a good point where it's like, I don't know how to feel about like just curing mental illnesses. It works for some characters, but not others.
Yeah.
I feel like Goblin should have been maybe the one that like maybe didn't get cured.
I mean, their illnesses were caused by magic eels. You know, like, don't think too much about it.
No, serums and a fucking machinery also did a lot of the work.
Yeah, and Doc Ock is the one that I think has the most personal like grudge against Peter Parker because
oh my god,
in Spider-Man 2,
Doc Ock, man.
Doc Ock is my favorite Spider-Man villain. I'm just never satisfied.
Since Spider-Man 2 and then the video games, like that's so clearly the best Spider-Man villain. It's not even close.
But like in Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock has a personal grudge against Spider-Man because he broke the machine, rightfully so, because it was going to explode and it fried his chip and it broke his brain.
Yeah.
That's 100% reasonable as to why he has a grudge against Spider-Man, and it makes sense for them to fix the chip, fix his brain. That all makes sense. But like Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, chose to take the Goblin Serum and go crazy.
Osborn's problem started before the serum. It was like I need to prove myself issue, and I need to live up to what the board expects of me. Like all these different like economical issues that led him to become the Green Goblin, and we're just gonna fix that with a serum. And
it's like there's a lot more going on in Norman's head before the goblins. The serum just amplified what he was feeling to a point where he felt like he needed to like deal with it outwardly.
Okay, so that's all my gripes. I'll let Joe gripe a little more, but after that, I want Bradley to start with positives because this is a good movie. I just bring this up because again, when something's so overwhelmingly positive, I'm like, guys, are we like looking at this with a critical eye, or are we just crying because Tobey Maguire showed up? And
my last gripe is that I really wish either. I don't think Sandman and Lizardman should have been in this movie because they were fucking useless and they were pointless. They were just fodder to be fought.
I think they should have been in this movie, but written better. I think the writing didn't do them justice.
I also really wish that there was a Tom Holland Peter Parker villain in this movie that makes him more connected to this group of villains,
or at least previously an MCU version of that villain, and you know that would have been so much more interesting if
you can bring back Vulture. Yeah, because why not?
Oh man, Vulture was great. Vulture was great. Yeah, that was so personal.
And
that was
his
homecoming day.
We'll have 6 people then, and then you finish off Sinister Six. But whatever.
How does Vulture from another universe know this Peter Parker?
It's another universe. Who gives a shit? That literally doesn't matter.
I'm saying is that there's not a villain that's like Tom Holland's villain. It's Garfield villains and Tobey Maguire's villains.
Tom Holland hasn't been a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man until the 3rd movie ends. Like,
yeah, okay, that's first of all, thank you for pointing out a problem with every single one of these films. Second of all, he's had the Vulture and Mysterio, but they killed them both off. So
Mysterio is literally in another country and not in New York.
Mysterio's dead. Vulture's in prison.
Vulture, I can't. Okay, I forgot Vulture
Vulture's in
lived.
prison.
How come
And
Vulture wasn't in this fucking film? What the fuck?
Yeah, like.
Anyways, okay, Bradley, we need your positive optimism. You're so good at it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Before we get into Bradley's positive optimism,
Before we say anything good.
I have complaints.
What is your complaint?
My complaint is, you know how he casts a spell and he said it's going to erase everybody's memories?
Oh my god. The whole ending of the movie before the real ending does not make sense.
He didn't say it's going to erase everybody's fucking iPhones, every written physical note, every imprint on the internet of YouTube, Google, every digital print of media that, like,
Oh, I hate Doctor Strange in this film. It's so stupid. Here's another thing. Peter, all the universes are breaking and they're leaking through. Okay, if you erase my mind, they won't come through, right? How does that send everyone back? How did erasing everyone's mind send everyone back? That seems like two different spells. Whatever.
Yeah. So not
I can
only
just smell us losing subscribers. Yes.
not only does, like, he's not specify it will erase every memory of him, like he does say it'll be like you never existed, but he just says it alters their minds, you know, like it
Not their
doesn't say that it's
phones, not their
collection.
documents.
And what about everybody who's like not on planet Earth, or B, not in this
Jesus.
dimension
I
or
didn't even think of
galaxy?
that. Is Captain Marvel going to come back and be like, you want to fuck Peter Parker?
Yeah, what if she comes back and goes, "Hey there, Peter Parker," and Happy goes, "You know him?" Like,
Okay,
how
hold
do you know?
on. I actually need y'all to help me through this one.
Yeah.
When Peter meets Happy, he says they're mutual friends of Spider-Man, and Peter said, like, Happy knows who Spider-Man is. What's happening there?
Fuck you! Fuck you! Tobey Maguire's in this movie.
Wait, what is this?
So when Peter meets Happy at the end, and Happy's like, how do you know her? Peter says, I'm a friend through Spider-Man, and Happy says, same. Who the fuck does Happy think Spider-Man is?
He just doesn't know that part.
I think
like,
Okay, but his intelligence network's not gonna be like, wait, it was that kid. Like, what's happening in this film at the end?
It's magic.
well, in his new memories, I assume it's probably just like Iron Man
Spider-Man.
never actually introduced him to the.
So they're gonna find out who Spider-Man is with their insane technical network and find out it's Peter Parker, right?
It would literally take Happy 2 seconds with Iron Man tech to find out who, because it took Iron Man literally like 1 second to figure out
Off
who Peter Parker
screen,
was.
he off-screened it like a One Piece fight. Like he just found out. Anyways, can we please let Bradley get us back on ship?
No. We need to keep shitting on the movie.
All right, and here's another thing. Okay, no, please, Bradley.
Other thing.
So this movie,
It's so hot.
and MCU Spider-Man in general is not friendly neighborhood. However, I personally think this movie did a great job with the tagline of Spider-Man, which is "With great power comes great responsibility."
True.
I think there was a very satisfying. There was more than one satisfying moment of, I think, MCU Peter Parker learning his lessons, like making that eye contact with Toby, and finally making his decision of like, hey, you know, it's not about me. Do the spell again this time. I don't care. I don't know. I thought it was very satisfying.
And I thought that was well set up with the scene where he saves the Chancellor from the bridge, and he's like, it's not about me. I want my other two friends to get a fair chance.
Exactly. I love it. And you know what? This is the scene that we hinted at it earlier. I left the movie theater knowing this was my favorite scene, and I've seen this sentiment echoed all around the internet. The scene where Andrew Garfield saves MJ. That was like where the most tears came out of me.
So I mentioned how I think that's like the scene where he fails to save her is my favorite scene in all of the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
This is my second favorite scene because it's such a beautiful follow-up to it. I feel like they could have milked it just a tad more, but you know what?
Yeah.
They nail the dialogue once they land on the ground.
When I saw that scene, the thought I had was, this isn't just MCU Spider-Man movie number 3. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 3.
It is the Andrew Garfield redemption arc, and let me jump on that wagon. Andrew Garfield's easily the best part of this movie for me.
Yeah.
I thought he fucking killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a small scene where like all the villains show up on the island and he jumps out and he comes in the camera's like, Max, I missed you, bud, and then he swings off. I'm like, that's
Spider-Man! And then he's webbing the lizard. He's like, I'll get right back to you. I was like, that's fucking Spider-Man!
Yeah. Like, that was the big thing I was missing from, like, Tom Holland. Is like, I need him to be a bit of a jackass about things. Like, not completely,
And
but like...
poor. I need you to be poor.
Like he was in Civil War.
Kind of, yeah.
No. In Civil War, he was just starstruck kid. Don't you fucking start with me.
Yeah.
No, he was such an ass to them. He was like, "Oh, you have claws? That's cool."
No, that's just starstruck kid who doesn't know how to banter yet.
But like a big part about Spider-Man is that he talks the entire time.
He's the one MCU character who should have MCU dialogue. Do you get what I mean? MCU dialogue is so saturated with jokes. That's Spider-Man's like bread and butter.
Instead, he's like a little boy, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm such a cute little twink. Will you love me?"
Yeah.
So okay, so like Andrew Garfield was so, and you know what's another great scene? Where Toby is reaffirming Andrew, both in character and in canon, that he was a worthy Spider-Man. Look, man, you're amazing. I don't care what anyone says. You did your thing.
Cool.
And the way I break it down, Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man with the worst movies.
Yes.
Tobey Maguire is the worst Spider-Man with the best movies.
Yes.
And then Tom Holland falls in between both of them as the middle Spider-Man with the middle written movies.
You know what?
What is your favorite scene from the Spider-Man?
The Gwen Stacy scene, MJ scene by far. I literally had to hold back tears, and I was like, I can't believe we just went through a goofy action sequence that looks kind of bad, and then just a whiplash of me like holding back tears to how sincere that scene was. That was sublime.
Oh yeah.
Bradley, same.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Joe.
Oh, for me, it was Tom Holland trying to fight Green Goblin in the hallway.
Very good.
I just really liked that scene. That was an actual like fight scene. It wasn't. No
CG. Not a lot of CGI bullshit. Just some weird camera cuts for that.
And the fight scene of them on the shield at Liberty Island. I thought was really
Tyler, what do you got?
My favorite scene was when Tobey Maguire is stretching his back.
Oh,
and then he's like, "Oh, you want me to get that for you?" And he's like, "Oh yeah," and he like gets him to pop his back because he's like, "Oh man, I'm like throwing out my back," and
he's like,
Andrew's
I got that.
I know, right? Like he's like, I'm just like now getting that, and it's like
it was also so cool that since we didn't get Amazing 3. Andrew Garfield's like a darker Spider-Man who like his loss made him a bit grittier and Daredevil-esque. I really like that.
Dude, I loved every conversation between the Spider-Men.
So
there's too few. Is it fair to say there's too few? Because
it's too few. They came into the movie late, and we don't always get them even when they're there.
I feel like there's like 2 scenes where they're really talking with each other.
I love it. He's like, you guys ever get a web block? Is like, oh yeah. I get web block.
And like Toby like referencing Spider-Man 2 with the web block so specifically. I love that.
Y'all, I fucking love when Toby throws it out of his arm naturally, and the other two are like,
"Whoa!"
He's like, "Y'all can't." He's like, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" He's like, "What? Y'all can't do that?"
Oh my
He's
god,
like,
I love it.
Andrew Garfield's face is like a genuine face you would make if someone did that
Andrew
in front of you.
Garfield's so fucking good in this movie. He's so pathetic and lovable. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think Tom Holland is too famous.
And I do love how he's like, guys, I don't mean to like alarm you. I'm an Avenger. They're like, cool. What's that?
Yeah. I I agree with y'all. This movie isn't bad. I say it's like very Civil
It's a
War.
good movie, and here's another thing: Tom is the best he's ever been in this film as well, because he shows a lot of range. Yeah. I felt a lot for him, especially in the end when he's smiling as MJ's forgotten him. I'm like, how can you fucking smile? You are such a pure cinnamon burn right now.
What a great line, a great exchange of like, does it hurt him? Does it hurt? And she goes, not anymore. Like, that goes on so many levels. Like, I was just like, oh, God, that hurts.
No.
Also, there at the end, in the apartment, was like a callback to Spider-Man: The Original Trilogy when he gets done sewing his own.
You said it was the exact same apartment. I'm not sure about that.
I said it looked similar.
It definitely.
It is
similar.
not. I went back and checked. It is not the same apartment. It looks similar.
It's invoking those emotions.
Yeah.
I feel like they finally got Spider-Man 3 movies into the point where I wanted him to start. I don't like Spider-Man fighting Thanos. I don't like Spider-Man going to space. I like Spider-Man teaming up with Daredevil and beating up a fucking mob boss. Like, that's bullshit.
Spider-Man.
Y'all, I think this was the last Spider-Man, though.
No, absolutely not. Tom Holland already has another trilogy in line.
I can't see him having another trilogy.
It's another trilogy.
Did they say that for
that is something I read, and I'll double check after this. Here's the thing. I'm down for this because okay, here, look. You're on to Marvel, right? Marvel will set up these things where in their next big end game, they're gonna pop these things off. One of them, it's Peter saying "I love you" to MJ. Like, it is so foreshadowed that it's almost painful, and I can't wait for it. I want it to finally get there, and we're gonna work through there in another 10 movies or so.
I am excited about Spider-Man Work From Home, though. That is something I want to see.
I really want Peter Parker to be in a red and blue suit from now on.
And at the end of the movie, he had a shit suit, and I was like, let's fucking go.
That satin suit?
Yeah, I was like, that's fucking Spider-Man. Like, it's just like, there was something really, like, nostalgic seeing that. And I'm just like, that's fucking... compared to, like, all the nice, sleek suits that he had. And, like, it really bugged me that in, like, potentially what was, like, his maybe send-off movie or big, like, get-together movie, he doesn't, like, show off the classic colors of Spider-Man. But I also kind of get that because you have two other Spider-Man there in the same
He's
color.
a different Spider-Man, and he finally got to a place where I can really respect it.
Also, of all of the Spider-Man suits that they showed up at the end there, I still think the Raimi suit looks the best.
I really like the Raimi suit. Aside from the eyes, I really like the Andrew Garfield suit.
And I'm just really upset about Dr. Octopus. That's really it.
What? Really? I thought he was great.
I want the big, stupid octopus fight on the building, which is in Spider-Man 2.
Oh, action-wise, dude, the fact that Spider-Man 2 in 2002 had better action in this film is a bit of an issue.
Yeah, it's just like... And that's why I liked Spider-Man, the 2006, 18, 19 Spider-Man game. Like, that was
pretty hard in the action segments.
Yeah, it's all I've ever wanted in a Dr. Octopus fight. It's like, it's so good.
I want to play that game. Dr. Octopus is a character I respect so much because of his his close relationship with Peter, and it's also why this is the only comic book I want to read right now is Superior Spider-Man. Like, that weird relationship they have is just so cool to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, did anyone feel like Toby was underused?
Yeah, but fun. So the first time I saw this movie, I went to a lower tier theater near my house because I had to get tickets to the last second because I was babysitting my cousin, and she's like, he really wants to go see the new Spider-Man movie. He's like, all right, I'll take you. The audio didn't work properly in that theater, so I literally missed like half of Tobey Maguire's lines.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, and I was just like, this movie's not great. Toby doesn't Toby isn't doing much and seems to be silent the whole time. And then I watched it again at Alamo Draft House. I was like, oh, this is so much better.
You should see everything at the Alamo Draft House.
No, Tyler, I would if I could, but sometimes I have to sacrifice portions of myself.
Next time you watch an MCU movie, Joe, it could be with me, and then we'll both have fun.
At the Alamo Draft House.
Yes.
Wherever it may be. I'm not picky. Okay.
Yes, there are multiple Alamo Draft House locations in Dallas.
Then I can eat at my brother's restaurant. So you know what? Yes, at the Alamo Draft House.
At the Alamo Draft House.
Anyways,
Alamo Draft House.
I hear I hear Peter Maguire was a bit of an asshole back in the days, and that was a bit upsetting to hear about. Yeah,
Peter Maguire.
Peter Maguire.
Maguire.
Apparently a bit of a clerk. All right.
Let's send this home.
We're sending this home. Top 5 MCUs. Let's start with Tyler.
Oh my god.
Wait, like top to bottom?
No, top 5 MCUs.
All right.
You can go.
Endgame is one of them.
Okay.
Let Tyler go last because his brain needs big things.
Joe, top 5 MCUs.
Top 5 MCU movies. Let's think about this. Infinity War, I'm gonna put as number 1, I think.
Damn.
Yeah, definitely Infinity War number 1. Number 2 is gotta be Iron Man 3's number 4.
Whoa.
Put that out there.
Weird.
I really liked Iron
That's
Man 3.
a good movie. Fair.
It is a good movie. I think Spider-Man Far From Home is 3. Spider-Man Homecoming is 5. And I can't think of 2. Right, and my 2 is Endgame.
Should we have started with Bradley? Because you're not doing very good. Okay, Endgame too. Bradley, go, please. Save us.
All right. Without really thinking about it that much, Endgame number 1, Infinity War number 2, number 3 is fucking Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Number 4, Iron Man 1. Number 5, fucking motherfucking Age of Ultron?
Yo, is Bradley based now?
I think Ultron is fucking cool.
Now, earlier today, you said this new Spider-Man was your top 5. What happened?
Man, y'all kind of y'all sway me a little.
Look, I don't want to go in and ruin people's fun, and sometimes that's who I am, and I'm really sorry about that. I just want people.
This spoiler though.
Yeah, you know how like Miles and Peter are gonna tag team Venom in the next Spider-Man game?
Yeah.
That was you and me. But the thing is, I just want people to give everything the same amount of like criticism and also leniency, because I think a lot of like not so great things get bashed too hard, and I just want people to find that middle ground a little bit. Okay, let me go through mine before Tyler has to do his. Tyler's disappeared from his screen, and that's a little terrifying. There he is. Okay, for me it goes Guardians 1 and 2, and then Endgame and Infinity War. I think Infinity War over Endgame and 2 over 1 for the Guardians.
Yeah.
And then I think it goes Civil War and Winter Soldier as 5 and 6. And then it goes, and I know, I'm just giving you a loose, and then after those 6 goes all of the Spider-Man movies in a block. And among them, I think the first one's the best and the third one's the second best.
Interesting.
So, like, after all the criticisms I just gave this movie, it's still, like, top 7 MCU films. So, like, get off my back a little bit, okay? I just...
top 5 movies ever.
No, absolutely not. It's
Quentin Tarantino 1, Quentin Tarantino 2.
I'm ready.
All right, Tyler, go ahead.
All right.
In no particular order.
fair.
Fair.
With a tie, we have Iron Man 1 and 2.
Oh my... Okay, I'm done. I'm leaving. The podcast is over.
Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
Here we go again.
Infinity War. Civil War.
Wow.
And Shang-Chi.
I forgot about Shang-Chi. He's really good.
I talked about how that last third of Shang-Chi, there's better MCU films with better thirds.
I never brought it up. I forgot to bring it up. Why do you have a problem with Katie being able to shoot a bow and arrow, but not with Ned being able to fucking pull off everything Doctor Strange was about?
Hey Tyler,
in like a little bit.
I absolutely have a problem with Ned. Don't you get me wrong.
Saying Ned's magic now?
I just had bigger problems to worry about than fucking Ned, okay?
I think people forget what this sling ring is for.
Opening buttholes.
Yeah, that's what it's for. And once he loses that, he can't do that no more.
And literally in Doctor Strange, that was like an entire segment where he couldn't open buttholes.
Yeah.
And then Ned is like,
Tyler,
I wish.
Tyler, I'm down for Ned, but it also sucks, okay? I just want you to know
he's
that.
like, I wish. he simply wished and it happened.
Oh, he got the ring.
You know what was good? You know what was really good? MJ and Tom Holland's love, that was really sweet and cute. And I think Zendaya finally came into her own as like a MJ to match the original MJs and Gwen Stacy, you know?
Yep. We will see. So at the end of this movie, two things.
Okay, I didn't mention that. I was so mad. I was like, am I going to have to watch fucking Venom? And then thankfully I don't have to watch Venom. Thank you, Jesus Christ.
I was hoping we would maybe have to.
So happy.
I like how the bartender at the end was not surprised about him fading out of existence because everybody got blipped. And he was like, fucking again.
No, that's bad because he should have been like, I need to call my mom and dad. That's a whole MCU problem where they won't let like serious things rock and they'll do humor instead, but I digress.
Also, this is the coolest thing, and Willer missed it.
I didn't see Shumagarath.
There is a trailer for Doctor Strange 2, and one of the main enemies is Shumagorath.
Dude.
The first 10 minutes, and he's put into a box, and you don't see him till the end, and he's used to like fix whatever's at the end.
Okay,
He's gonna combine with Nega Doctor Strange.
It doesn't matter because Shumagarath has lasered Ryu and Chun-Li and Joe Valentine in fighting games, and that's all I care about.
Is Shumagorath what ties Ryu to MCU, or has he done happened before that? Is like all the other
Spider-Man would have done that before him.
Well, yeah, because of MVC, but like I'm wondering, what does Shumagorath tie in? Anything else?
It's just MVC. Anyways, Bradley, finish us off. Kill us.